Tonight, a quiet story from a clearing deep in the woods. Long ago, about a charcoal burner, his old dog, and the long, patient night they sat up together, tending a slow fire that could not be hurried. By the time the dark came down on the forest, Jakob's mound was lit and smoking, and the long night's watch had begun. He had spent the last 3 days building it, there in the clearing where he built one every year, stacking the cut wood up into a great round dome, layer on careful layer, taller than a man, and then covering the whole of it over with earth and turf and old charcoal dust until it was a smooth, dark hill with not a stick of wood showing. And that morning, he had set a slow fire down through a hole in the top of it into its very heart, and then closed the hole most of the way over. And now the great covered mound stood in the clearing in the falling dark, smoking quietly from its top and its sides, beginning the long, slow change that would take it all the night. For that was the whole secret of charcoal, and the whole of Jakob's craft. You could not hurry it. The wood packed inside the mound was not to burn, not with open flame, never with flame, but only to smoulder, slow and close and starved of air, all through the night and more, until it turned from wood into charcoal, light and black and clean. Let it catch into open flame, and it would burn itself up to useless grey ash, and the 3 days building and the nights watching all be for nothing. Keep it slow and sealed and smouldering, and by morning it would come good. And the only way to keep it slow was to sit up with it the whole night and tend it. So Jakob settled in to do just that, as he had every working year of his life. He had his little hut at the edge of the clearing, and his own small watchfire before it. A proper fire, this one, for his warmth and his kettle. And he had his long-handled spade leaned ready against the hut, and a heap of loose earth beside it. And he had old Bruno, his dog, who came and turned around 3 times, and lay down by the fire with a groan very like his master's. The forest stood black and close all around the clearing. The first stars were coming out in the gap of sky above it. And in the middle of it all sat the great dark smoking mound, beginning its slow night's work, with Jakob to keep it. There was nowhere he had to be, and nothing he had to do, but this: to sit up through the dark and tend the slow burn, and not hurry it, until the morning came. The early part of the night was the busiest, for the mound was new lit and lively, and wanted watching. Every little while, Jakob got up from his fire, and took up a lantern and walked a slow round of the mound, all the way round it, reading it as he went. And what he read was the smoke, for the smoke told him everything. Thin and blue and lazy, drifting up gentle from all over the dome. That was good. That was the slow smoulder doing its quiet work. And he walked on past it, satisfied. But a thread of smoke gone quick and white and hard from one spot. Or worse, a little red glow showing through somewhere. That meant the fire had found air there and was trying to wake up into flame and had to be put back down. He had read smoke this way for 40 years, since he was a boy at his own father's mound, and he read it now without thinking, the way you read a face you have known all your life. He knew this mound as he knew them all, knew where it would try to break through and where it would sit quiet. And he walked his rounds in the lantern light, through the early dark, patient and unhurried, watching the slow blue smoke rise off it into the night, and was content. The forest kept him company in its way. An owl called off in the dark trees, and another answered it. Small things rustled in the leaves at the clearing's edge and went still. Once, the soft, careful steps of something larger, a deer perhaps, or a fox, moved along the far side of the clearing and were gone. Jakob minded none of it. The forest at night was his, as much as it was anyone's, after all these years. He was easy in it, the only waking man for miles. Alone but for his dog and his mound and the slow blue smoke. And he would not have traded the deep quiet dark of it for any warm bed in any town. He walked his round and came back to his fire and sat and watched the mound and waited for the night to deepen. Around the middle of the evening, the mound tried to break out, the way they always did, and Jakob put it back to sleep. He was on his round when he saw it. Low down on the far side of the dome, a little jet of smoke had gone quick and white, and just below it, a small red eye of glow had opened, where the earth covering had cracked and let the air in. 40 years ago, a glow like that might have made his heart jump. Now it did not. It was the most ordinary thing in the world, and he knew exactly what to do, and he did it without the least hurry. He took up his spade. He cut a little loose earth from the heap he kept ready for just this, and he laid it over the cracked place, gently, not slapping it on but settling it, and pressed it down with the back of the spade, sealing the air out, smothering the glow, closing the mound up smooth again. The white smoke thinned and slowed and went blue once more. The red eye dimmed and shut. The fire, denied its air, sank back down into the slow, deep smoulder it was meant to be, there in the dark heart of the mound, and went quietly on with its proper patient work. That was all it took. A spadeful of earth, a steady hand, and the knowing where to look. Jakob stood a moment and watched the spot, to be sure it held. It held. He patted the earth down once more, and took up his lantern, and walked on round the rest of his quiet mound under the stars, and went back to his fire. Bruno lifted his head and asked with his eyebrows whether anything was the matter, was told with a hand laid on his head that nothing in the world was, and put his nose back down and went to sleep. And then the night settled, and the mound settled with it, and the deep quiet middle of the night came on. After the lively early hours, the mound had found its slow, steady smoulder at last, and wanted less of him now. Only the odd round, the odd small patch, and so Jacob could sit longer by his fire, and let the deep night simply be what it was. It was very quiet now, and very dark. The kind of dark and quiet you only get deep in a forest in the small hours, with the nearest other soul miles off and asleep. The watchfire burned low and red. The mound breathed its thin blue smoke up into the dark, slow and even, a great patient sleeping thing. Above the clearing, the stars had wheeled round and thickened, hard and bright in the gap of sky over the black trees. The cold had come down, the real cold of the small hours, and Jacob fed his own fire and warmed his hands at it, and made tea in his blackened kettle, and drank it slow. And old Bruno pressed warm against his leg. And the two of them sat there together, in the one small ring of firelight in all that dark forest, and were, in their plain way, perfectly content. He thought about very little on nights like this. That was half of why he loved them. There was nothing to decide, and nothing to chase, and nowhere to be. There was only the mound to mind, and the fire to feed, and the long, slow hours to sit through. And a man's mind, given all that quiet and nothing it must do, simply went still, went as slow and easy and untroubled as the blue smoke rising off the mound. He sat and watched it rise, and was not bored, and was not lonely, and did not want the night to be over. Some men could never have borne it. The long, dark, solitary hours. Jacob had spent a whole working life learning that they were, for him, the best hours there were. The fire ticked. The mound smouldered. The stars turned slowly over the black trees, and the night wore on toward morning at its own unhurried pace, and Jacob kept his patient watch. And all the while, unseen, inside the dark mound, the slow change was happening. He could not see it, but he knew it, the way he knew everything about his craft, that down there in the sealed dark, hour by patient hour, the wood was becoming charcoal. Not quickly, not all at once. There was no moment you could point to and say, there, now it has changed. There was only the long, slow, steady smoulder, all night long, working its way inward through the stacked wood, turning it bit by bit from heavy raw wood into something light and black and clean. A slow becoming that could happen no faster than it happened, and could not be forced, and could not be skipped, and would not come at all, unless a man was willing to sit up the whole night through and keep it slow. That was the heart of it, Jacob had always thought, in his wordless way, that the good of the charcoal was made in the dark, slowly, while the world slept, by someone simply sitting up and being patient with it. You could not stand over it and make it hurry. You could only tend it and keep it slow and wait and trust that the slow, dark work was doing itself, hour by hour, the way it always had. And in the morning, When the cooled mound was opened, there it would be. The night's long patience turned solid and black and good in your 2 hands. He fed his fire. He walked one more slow round under the paling stars. The smoke was thinner now and bluer than it had been, and there was a smell to it he knew of old. The clean, sharp smell that came near the end, and by it he knew that the burn was coming good, the way it always did for a man who sat up and let it take its time. Away in the east, beyond the black trees, the sky had gone the faintest grey. Morning came to the forest slowly, the way it does. The grey in the east turned a pale gold, and the light came down soft and slow through the high trees into the clearing, and a few early birds began, far off and gentle. The stars went out one by one, and the great mound stood low and dark, and almost done in the new light, smoking only the faintest thread of blue now. Its long night's work all but finished. Jakob got up, stiff from the long sitting, and stood and looked at it in the soft dawn. His mound that he had built for 3 days and watched for 1 whole night. And he knew, without opening it, that it had come good. He could read it in the colour of the last smoke and the smell of it, and 40 years of mornings exactly like this one. The burn was made. Down in the cooling dark of the mound, where he could not yet see it, the wood had all become charcoal, light and black and clean, the way it had every year, because he had sat up and kept it slow and not hurried it, and let the long dark do its patient work. And now, at last, he could sleep. The mound was made and safe, sealed and slow. It would only cool now, all through the coming day, and needed nothing more from him. The long watch was over, and well over, and there was nothing left in the world he had to do but rest. So Jakob banked his little fire down to embers, and went into his hut at the edge of the clearing, and lay down on the bed of dry fern there with his coat pulled over him, bone-tired and deeply content, the good black charcoal making itself in the cooling mound a few steps away. Bruno came in and circled once, and lay down warm against him. The soft grey gold light grew slowly in the clearing. The few far birds sang on, gentle and unhurried. And the charcoal burner, his long, faithful night behind him, and the slow work come good, closed his eyes in the quiet dawn, and let the deep patience of it carry him, at last, down into sleep. The great mound low and quiet now in the soft dawn, its last thin smoke drifting up blue and faint, cooling slow all day toward the good black charcoal within, the watchfire down to warm grey embers, the spade leaned by the hut, the man and his old dog lying warm together in the little hut, the long patient night behind them, sinking down into well-earned sleep as the gentle light comes up through the trees. The slow, good work made, as it can only be made, in the dark, and all in its own unhurried time.